Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level. Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We've got no limits now. And that's what we're going to be talking about is limiting beliefs. And, I say we have no limits, but the fact of the matter is, everybody's got that little voice in the back of their head that says, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. And if you have something telling you, oh, I don't have that little voice, that's the little voice trying to trick you. We
Yep.
all we all have it, but there's no reason to listen to it. So we're going to talk about limiting beliefs, how they occur, and how to get past them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, we've talked about this in various forms before because basically what we're just talking about is our own brains. And what our own brains do is we create everything. We've talked a lot before about symbology and all of our thoughts. My thoughts are totally different from yours about different things and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, where you get into trouble is your thoughts about yourself. And then you start clouding yourself with insecurities and so on and so forth. And over the years, those things build up for a number of different reasons. And really, what the key is to all this stuff is to just identifying them, questioning, are they real, just as you said, and realizing that most of them aren't, and replacing them with things that are positive. So, I mean, obviously, there's different things to do here, which we're going to get into right now.
Yes. Now, we say you have to understand that these are not real. And that's very simple. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Because these limiting beliefs have not just come from years of your own experience, they've come from generations upon generations of genetics. There's actually biological reasons as to why we have these limiting beliefs. Because back centuries and centuries ago, when people used to actually face life and death situations on a daily basis, when you had to go hunting for food and there was a possibility that something was hunting you for food, our bodies created the fight or flight mechanism. And that's where you biologically shut down everything except adrenaline and your senses. Essentially, you're flooded with cortisol, so if you have to fight your way out of a situation or if you have to flee a situation, all of your energy is focused on that. Well, from that, our minds developed a self-defense mechanism, and this is buried in our subconscious. And its job is to keep you safe. So its job is essentially to say, well, that seems dangerous. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Now, it was developed, again, when there was true danger. Now, unfortunately, that instinct has not evolved, but our lives have. So now, if you want to take a chance on an opportunity, now there's a possibility you could fail. Your instinct, And this is also referred to in some circles as your lizard brain, because it is a very primitive instinct, sees that you can fail and interprets that as danger and starts telling you, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. That could be dangerous. So now we are stuck in a position where we actually have to argue with our own brain and go, no, there's no danger there. Could I fail? Sure. But failure is not dangerous. And our subconscious really does not understand that. And that's where we have to make the effort to train ourselves to understand that when our instinct says danger, we actually have to examine that and go, well, is it really danger? Like walking across a 6-lane highway, or is it figurative danger? Like taking on an extra assignment that you might not do so well.
Yeah, but you never know until you try. That's the old saying there, obviously. So really, it really starts with identifying your limiting beliefs. And like a lot of other things that we talk about, a self-analysis is a great place to start. So what you really should do is start recognizing the negative thoughts and the patterns that are holding you back. Just write them down. Just do a self-analysis and start writing these things down. And whatever starts popping up more often, these are things that are obviously problems for yourself that you have to start paying attention to. I mean, basically, this is your negative self-talk, especially as you talked about when facing challenges. So if you write these things down, you will start gaining clarity and objectivity, and you'll probably start developing a pattern as far as to what's going on. And if you can group these things together, perhaps you can address a whole bunch of different things that really are a result of the same type of limiting behavior that you have.
Right. And, when you're identifying these, it's useful to try to identify where the thought comes from, because these thoughts don't just appear, they all have origins. And, some are that lizard brain origin where, it thinks it's dangerous, but some come from our childhood. As we're told things like, well, money doesn't grow on trees, you have to be realistic. What our parents meant well, but they were trying to temper our expectations because they didn't want us to be disappointed. Well, unfortunately, that ends up doing a lot of damage. Also, see if some of these come from past experiences or failures. If you've tried something before and failed, that little voice starts going, well, you couldn't do it last time. What makes you think you could do it this time? But you're not the same person this time as you were last time. You've learned more, you've tried more, you've grown. So, your brain creates patterns to avoid pain, even if it unintentionally sabotages your growth. You can also identify some of these traits from coming from fear of rejection or judgment. And Chip, you've said this over and over a time, the example of everybody's in their own courtroom. Nobody's judging you. They're all too busy worrying if they're being judged.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of these come from sheer fear. And we've talked about that also. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So when you're identifying what your patterns are, try to identify what's causing the pattern as well. Because if you understand it, it gives you a much better chance of overcoming it.
Yeah, absolutely. We as human beings, we are the only living creature that can punish ourselves time and time again for an act that happened years ago or yesterday or worrying about the future. Everybody, everything else that you look out there in nature, animals and everything else is just, they get by it and they just move on to the next thing. So it's a curse. to have the memory. It's also wonderful to have the memories. And one of the best things that you can do when you're feeling down and identifying your limiting beliefs is to start practicing gratitude and looking at things that you're grateful for and write those down. We've talked about that very, very many times too. But as far as overcoming limited beliefs, replace them with positive ones. We've talked often about um, a victory log, which is writing down everything that's ever happened to you positively in your life, all of your accomplishments, a gratitude journal where you can just do that every single day. And it's not just an exercise to make you feel better. I mean, if our human brain is controlled by everything that's going on, and we're going to bring that back time and time again, why not put it on paper in a positive standpoint and bring it back that way and have it right in front of you all the time? We got to
Right.
play games with ourselves.
Yes, you do. You need to reframe those beliefs. Replace what you're saying from, say, I always mess things up. Instead of that, start thinking, well, every time I make a mistake, I learn from it and it makes me stronger and smarter. You reframe your limiting belief in a positive light, and this way you're actually starting to use those limiting beliefs to move forward. And then once you've reframed the belief, you also need to challenge the validity of the belief. Is it actually true? You know, can you actually find examples that show, well, you know what, that's not actually how it happens? I believe it was Mark Twain who said, I have had some terrible experiences, most of which never happened. We imagine that these things are going to be horrible. We imagine the worst case scenario. But when you actually think about it, the worst case scenario almost never happens. And yet, that's what we worry about. So you have to challenge the validity of these beliefs. Most limiting beliefs actually fall apart under scrutiny. When you actually, dissect them, you go, oh, well, you know what? That's actually not true. And remember what we were so worried about yesterday, we're now that it's today, that didn't happen, did it?
Yeah. It's just a thought. I mean, my old friend AI, which I go to every week now because I can, uh, overcoming limiting beliefs. We've already touched upon points one and two of these, and we've also touched upon more, but it says here's a more detailed breakdown. Number one is identifying limiting beliefs, and number two, just as you were talking about, is challenging these. And just as you said, basically question the validity by asking yourself, is this true? Is it based upon fact or fear? Seek evidence, be a detective. Is it really real? And then consider all alternative perspectives. And number three, obviously, is replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. And then we'll be talking more about taking action, seeking support if needed, and keeping it up because, like everything else in life, it's a process.
It is a process. And, I think one of the most important things you can do, you just sort of zipped by it, is taking action. You know, most of our limiting beliefs, the whole point of them is to stop us from taking action. When you start action, the beliefs fall apart. You know, when you reframe it, as we said, into a positive belief and then take action on that, you can actually prove your belief every time you have a small win. And that's something else that we've talked about frequently, is celebrating those small wins. Take the victories wherever they are. The more you can chalk up, the less hold your limiting beliefs are going to have on you. So it's very important, but you can't rack up the victories until you start taking action. And the other thing is that every time you take an action and you get one of these small victories, that action is building evidence against your limiting beliefs. And the more evidence you have, the less power the limiting belief has on you. Fact beats fiction every time. And
Yeah.
when you can build up enough facts, the fiction isn't going to captivate you.
Yep, and we talk about action all the time. We talked about it in terms of goal setting and
Yes,
basically just breaking down your goals, the things to work on as far as this goes, into smaller, manageable steps, starting with the small actions and generally increasing your efforts and obviously celebrating victory after victory, doing that. A lot of these things that we talk about, it's not like we come up with a new subject every week that isn't somehow related to something that we've already talked about because life is life. Life is complicated. And what we've been trying to do for 300 plus episodes is just uncomplicate it for you and make you more aware of what things really are, which is simpler than what our human minds, with the 60,000 thoughts a day, make them out to be.
absolutely. And, everything we've talked about so far has been about stopping the limiting beliefs that happen in your head. But limiting beliefs also come from outside of us. And that's something else that you have to look at. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounded by negative people? No, you can't do that. That's impossible, or that's not for people like us. But you know what? If that's the people you're surrounding yourself with, you need to find new surroundings. Join empowering communities, masterminds, mentorships, people who are reaching for more. There's an old um, saying that you are the total of the six people you spend the most time with. Well, take a look at those six people. Are they always struggling? Are they always limiting themselves? Well, if they're doing that, they're also limiting you. You need to be with uplifting people for you to be uplifted. And I always use this example. When we talk about being positive, we all have that one relative. We see them at the holidays or the family gatherings, and you go, "Hey, how's it going?" They go, "Oh, it's terrible. I hate my job. I can't find a date." And then, of course, you don't want to spend more time with them because they're so negative. That brings you down. So surround yourself with possibilities, surround yourself with positive people because the exposure to that actually expands your beliefs rather than limits them.
Yeah, absolutely. Point number five that we already mentioned as far as the bullet goes is seek support. And bullet number one,
Yes.
you talked about the negative people. And it says surround yourself with positive influences. Duh. I mean, that's pretty, you know, obvious to do that. And seek guidance from mentors and friends and coaches from positive people,
Yes.
and engage in activities that promote self-compassion. And this could be groups, it could be volunteering for something, just getting out there and doing something positive. And there's all kinds of opportunities out there for you to do that. But just make a point of latching onto something and starting something on that way. And if you are doing that, then you're actually working towards a common cause of good, maybe like a Rotary Club or something like that, where a whole group is working towards the same thing. And it's uplifting to put your efforts into these positive things and realizing that they're coming to fruition, and it's great stuff. If you're artistic on the side and so on, and you like to get into acting and so on, join a theater guild or do some other things there where you're just a project by project thing. And once it's done and the performances are over, you're going to miss it big time. But those memories never go away either. So, I mean, there's all
Yes.
kinds of opportunities out there depending on what are the things that you love to do and so on. And when we talk about putting together your personal strategic plan, it all starts out with that. What do I like to do? What am I good at? Take a look at those things. There's opportunities there to help you overcoming your limiting beliefs because you're going to be do something you love to do, and you're probably going to do it very, very well with other people who want to do it with you.
Right. And when you have negative people in your life and they're telling you, "Oh, you'll never be able to do that." Well, don't take that as confirmation of your limiting belief. Take it as a challenge. When somebody says you can't, your response should be, "Watch me." Because the truth is, when someone says you can't do something, what they're really saying is they can't do something and they don't want you to do it because then they're going to be envious because they don't even want to try. They're afraid. So they want to keep you in fear with them. Don't let them do it. When somebody says you can't, you have to respond, of course I can.
Yep. We talk all the time about changing your yes buts to yes ands for a week. The why not, the why you can do that. And that's the power of empowerment. And the bottom line is no matter how positive and great we are, everybody has their own insecurities. That's human nature. But it's just overcoming them one by one, again, by questioning whether they're really true. And most of them are not. You're just creating them yourselves. But these are the brain games that you have to play with yourself. You have to replace the negative ones, which we're automatically doing, including the person that we're talking about that is wearing the Life Sucks Then You Die t-shirt to every family event, and just change that around and list the different things that you can do and just start today one by one. And it's not like you're going to wave a magic wand and everything's going to be hunky dory. We're just talking about the awareness that you can do this. And again, life is just simply a series of present moment events. And if you want to choose to do something positive right now for this moment, that's great. You're one step closer to building a habit out of doing that.
Right. And you can take examples from around the world. I mean, think about it. 15 years ago, Elon Musk was told there's no way you're going to be able to catch a rocket ship on the way down so you can use it again. And now he does it on a regular basis. In 2000, Steve Jobs was told that there's no way you're going to put an entire computer in somebody's pocket. The iPhone. And it's not just recent. In 1917, the Wright brothers were told there's no way you're going to get that contraption off the ground. Now, flight is an everyday occurrence. This has gone on throughout history. There have always been naysayers, and there's always people to prove them wrong. You can be one of the people that proves them wrong. And the only thing that's really holding you back is you. So, aside from all these other methods we've used, there's also affirmations and visualizations. Visualize who it is you want to be and visualize yourself doing it. Tell yourself on a regular basis, every day, that you're capable of doing it to the point that you don't even think about saying it, it just comes to you automatically. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotion. So if you say something and you put your emotions into it, it's going to become part of you. You're going to believe it. And we've talked about visualizations in terms of vision boards, but also in terms of training yourself. You know, star athletes, long before they walk up to the plate to swing the bat, yes, they've practiced, but they've also visualized themselves at the plate hitting the ball, visualizing how that pitch is going to come to them. Athletes visualize how the ball is going to go into the basket or how they're going to throw it across the football field to an open receiver. They visualize these things over and over again because the way your mind works, your mind actually can't tell the difference between you actually doing something, you're remembering doing something, or you're imagining doing something. To your mind, they all fire the same neurons along the same neural pathway. So it can't tell the difference. So when you visualize it enough times and infuse it and believe it like it's real, your brain thinks you've already done it. So when it comes time for you to do it, your limiting belief is going to be gone because your brain believes, oh, we've already done that. It works out fine. So use these affirmations and visualizations to help move you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Law of attraction. Your thoughts become things. And what you constantly expose yourself to is what's going to happen. That's what you attract into your life. So you talked about athletes and other people who are doing just wonderful things with their lives, achieving things by working hard. They're just beginning with the end in mind. It's a done deal already, just because that's the way it's going to happen. And that's it. So, so important to look at things in that way rather than, okay, I got to do it. I got to hold the ball. I got to shoot it at the net and so on and so forth. It's automatic. You've been doing it 1,000 times as a basketball player. Just there you go. Some people never get it, but most people do.
Right? And remember, limiting beliefs are learned. Well, guess what? Anything that you've learned, you can unlearn. You know, we've learned so many things that turned out not to be true. When I was growing up, we learned Tyrannosaurus Rex was the most violent dinosaur on the planet and it ate other dinosaurs. Turns out Tyrannosaurus Rex was big, but it ate plants and it, wasn't that terrifying. We learned that Pluto was a planet. Turns out, no, it's not. It's actually just a planetoid. And we had to relearn that. We have to relearn things all the time. So why not relearn your beliefs and learn that they don't have to hold you back?
Yeah, absolutely. Relearn is a great, great way to put this. Basically, just replacing the negative with the positive, turning it around 180. And you can do that with any negative thing in your life. For everything that's there, there is an exact opposite. So for your negative thing that you have going on, you just write down what the opposite of that is, and that's something that you can achieve too. And that's something you can create in your mind, just like you did the negative thing.
All right, because limiting beliefs create these negative images, you can use your mind to create positive images and counteract them. And again, if you do it enough times, your positive images will erase the negative ones. Yeah, the simple fact is if you upgrade your belief, you're going to upgrade your entire life. If you want to break through those mental barriers that are holding you back, it's going to take work. But again, what you're doing is simple, even if it does take efforts. And you don't have to do it alone. You can find supportive people. You can work with a coach. There are ways for people to help you if you need that assistance. So I see by the clock on the wall that we are just about out of time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Well, we started off with the bullets of just identifying limiting beliefs, challenging them, asking if they're really, really true, replacing them with the negative thoughts. I know I've talked about the 5 agreements that you make with yourself oftentimes, which basically is be impeccable with your word, which means be your true self. Number 2, don't take things personally because everybody's different and you got to understand that. Number 3, same lines, don't make assumptions. And number 4, always do your best, even if it's not great. But the fifth one is what this is all about, which is be skeptical, which means question everything. Ask if it's real, this limiting belief, and then learn to listen. And learn to listen means if you disagree with somebody else, just understand what they're coming from, but learn to listen to yourself and where it's coming from, asking yourself if it's real. And if it's not real, you got to understand that you can change that around because we are all, in fact, artists that have our own symbols in our own heads, and everybody's different, which is a beautiful thing, but which is also the cause of limiting beliefs. So challenge them, identify them, and change them around.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big takeaway is the fact that we have these thoughts, but that doesn't make them real. And most of what we worry about never comes to pass. So if you start paying attention to that, if you start realizing, wait a minute, I was worried about that, but everything went fine. I was worried about this, but look how much better off I am now that I've done it. When you look at what you've actually done, in contrast to what you worried about would happen, you can start to understand that limiting beliefs aren't real. And the only thing that's holding us back is us. And there's no reason for us to do that. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.